Hi, and welcome to my beginner's course to RPG Maker MZ. And pretty much I'm going to show you the basics on how to use the program and move on from there. So this episode is going to be a introduction to the program, the beginner layout, the first thing you see when you open the program, how to make your first map, stuff like that. So go ahead, via Steam or RPGmaker.net or whatever you found it from, open it up, and you should see a blank screen like this. Well, what are your options? Well, you have File, which you can start a new project, you can open a project you already have. If you click Open from Workshop, you're pretty much going to open a... That's it if you have Steam. That's going to open a project or script or whatever from the Steam Workshop. So if you wanted to use a free demo game like Wolfsgang that's on there right now, you can use that by downloading from the workshop. Click on that. It should you would click subscribe after going to the workshop, and it would be downloaded to your computer, and you can click on your option and it would show a description of whatever it was, and you'll be able to click open and it'll open up for you. But that's not what I'm here to show you. I'm here to show you, if you're really new to RPG Maker, on how to start your project. Other than that, we have, close project. You click here, that's how you save, but normally we're going to do it a different way. Upload a workshop, so if you want to upload your project to the workshop, you can. Deployment, we'll get to that way later. And then we're going to show everything else as we move along. But first I'm going to do, there's also these buttons. They're pretty much the same thing. You got new project, open project, and saving. So those buttons do the same thing as open file, but if you want to do it that way, you can. It doesn't matter. So we're going to go ahead and click New Project. We're going to create a project. So usually the first things you get to do, you get to name your project. So name is going to be whatever the file folder is going to be. So I'm going to name it My First Game. The file folder can be different from the game title if you prefer it to be spaced out and stuff like that. But for this one, it's going to be that as my file name. And then I'm going to go ahead and title it correctly. And then location. You can choose the location on your computer. Usually it will start in your Documents folder under the file RMMZ. That is the file that will hold your game when you first start it. So you click OK, and we're going to wait for it to copy all the files over, because it's copying from your base assets that you downloaded from Steam or RPGmaker.net or whatever you got it from. It does take a little bit because there's a lot of stuff you get to have, and it's not just that. It's the coding, it's the special effects, it's the database, all the above. Alright, so once you see this screen, that means you have finished copying your files, and now you have a base project. There's a lot to see on this screen, even at first glance. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over some more of these tabs on top, and then look at the tabs underneath all those buttons. So edit. Edit is basically undo, cut, copy, paste, delete, find, next, previous. Same thing can be done with these buttons right here. Cut, scissors, copy, paste. These three buttons. You can also use delete for cut. Control C for copying, and pasting it can be Control V. Control V. Undo is also this button. Control Z will also do the same thing. Let's see if there's anything else I'm missing from that one. And then search, I think that's somewhere else. Yeah, alright. So next we have mode. You have two different modes when you're mapping a area or making events. So you have the map itself, which is your tiles right here, this green grass, that is the map. Event, so this player is a event. An event is something in a game that would perform an action based on what you code it to do. So, and we will get later on we will get to make these events and perform actions so we can have a full-fledged game. But right now, the only event that we have is our player, who starts right there. And also, as you can see, the left side went empty when I clicked on the event. And the reason why is because, so that is event number 1 right there. But let's say I have like 50 events all around this map, and I'm like having a hard time trying to find out what that event was. Well, on this list, on the left side, it will show, oh, event 1. I can click on that and it'll pull up the event. Just for a little bit of convenience. But basically, these two buttons right here, this is your map. Click on that, you could see the tile sets. Tile sets are what you use to make your maps. You can color, basically, with it. So you can make like a little ocean, you can make snow area, poison swamp, whatever you want. Hitting Control Z to get all that away. But and just so you know, Control Z or undo only goes back so far, so sometimes you still have to fill in the gaps. Alright, so this button is your map. This button right here is event. Also, if you hover over an option, it will still tell you a little bit about it. So event switches to event editing mode. Then we have the draw. You have pencil, rectangle, ellipse, flood fill, and shadow pen. So this doesn't work on the event option, but if you click on map, you will get these options. So let's start with the pencil. So let's first left click and choose a tile. So any of these right here. Let's choose that. So let's left click onto the map itself and just hold it down and move it around. And you basically just color where you want. Now you're creating a map using the pencil tool. Rectangle. I'm going to choose another color so you can see the difference. The rectangle, you hold left click down and you move your mouse and it creates a rectangle. Same thing with ellipse or ellipses. Choose mountains here and hold left click and move your mouse. Makes ellipses. Very good if you want to make like circles or irregular shapes. Alright, so the flood fill. Let's say I wanted to put the player on a little island in the middle of an ocean, but I don't feel like coloring every single tile right here. Well, I'll take one of the ocean or water tiles, and I'll take the flood fill and left click onto the grass tile, and it completely fills it for you. So that way you don't have to do a lot of work. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make a wall. Not that way. Little wall right there. So whenever you make a wall, these little shadows pop up. That's auto shadowing. That's what it does. That way you don't have to shadow it yourself. But if you want to remove that, you left click on those shadows. If you want to add shadows, you left click and just draw like any other tile. Then we move on to, well actually we're going to move on from layer. We're going to skip layer for now. Scale. Zoom in, out, and actual size. So same buttons here. You can zoom in all the way if you want, if you can't see. Zoom out if you have a big map and you want to see the full thing. Or if you want to go back to where the game is going to be seen, like the way that the player will see it, you click 1-to-1 because it's 1-to-1 with the width and height. Then we have our tool. We're gonna skip tools, skip game, help. Okay, so help. You have your about section, more tutorials if you want to see that. You can go straight to RPG Maker Web, which is where you buy all kinds of assets and stuff for your game, and where the forums are. Contents is if you want to know something about the game that isn't readily told to you, that there might be help in there. But that's pretty much that. Now back to layer. So we already know how to tile, how to create, how to take a pencil and just place tiles down. But what if we wanted to make layers of tiles? What if we wanted to have a bush, then a tree, then some lighting, then all that? Or a lake with a tree in the middle of it, and then some grass around it. Well, we have multiple layers for that. So the automatic layer is tiles that will automatically form whenever you're tiling. So for instance, I have grass in this little block here, but you see how the edges of this beach doesn't actually connect to the grass? Well, if I choose a grass tile, the grass automatically connects to the other grass tile because it's an auto tile. That's why it's called automatic. This is the automatic layer. Well, layer 1. So let's say I'm making a house now. Layer 1 is the it goes on top of those automatic tiles, but it still kind of works the same way. It's just it's on the first layer. And you see how these, like, the auto reacted to whatever I put here? That's because it's the first layer is technically on the same layer as the auto tiles. It's just the auto tiles are moving differently. And also you can see how this like hollow part, that's showing you that that is on top of that layer. So now move on to layer 2. Layer 2 is where you put things that would go on top of your flat tiles and stuff. So for instance, grass. We can make a little grass field right here, and that would be layer 1 or layer 2. Layer 3, now we can get some trees. Let me find some trees right here and just place that on top. Layer 4 would be on top of that tree. So you can put like a little flower that sits in the tree. And then you go back to automatic. You can see, hold on. There we go. So we go back to automatic layer and you can see that the flower is on top of the tree is on top of the grass, and the grass is on top of the automatic tiles, which adds to dynamic tiling. Now, what if I put this flower on layer 4 but put on the tree? It's going to go behind the tree, because that's how RPG Maker works, that if you put it behind a tile where something can be behind it, it's going to put it behind it. Just to let you know. And whenever we get to tile sets, that's when I will show you more about what this A, B, C, and R is, and how to use that more effectively. But let's go back to our first map that we had. Okay. So now we have our, so now we've done layer, file, edit, mode, scale, and help. Let's do game. So game is your folder for if you want to play test, open a folder, or update the core script. Let's say that they release a new update for RPG Maker MZ. You go to update core script and you click, you get to see your version, and you click whatever version you want to override it. So that way you can work with different versions. If not, you can backtrack to the version that you like. Because some people like certain versions, you might not like a higher version where some of your plugins stop working and all that, but whenever you're using this first time, most of that doesn't matter anyway, at least for now. Open folder. You click open folder, it'll take you to your games folder. And you can see all the little stuff that your games project actually has. It's quite a bit of stuff. We'll get to that after this. And then playtest, you can click that and it'll, if you've done something, change your game, it'll ask that and you click yes because you always want to save your game. Always, always, always. Always save your game. And then of course it plays your game. And the button to also do that, if you don't want to go to a game and click playtest every 2 seconds, you can click Control R, or you can click playtest right here. Then finally we have tools. Tools is your biggest options here for how to use the engine. Let's start with the options. Click options right there. You have your base options for the engine itself. Transparent color. So files are on a transparent layer. Files are on a transparent layer. So for example, I'm going to pull up one of these actors preview. So this is a file for RPG Maker MZ, and you can see that there's that transparent background behind them. Well, let's say you change that color. Let's say you're like, I don't want that to be my color. I want to make it a color that I can see, so that way I can see the difference between that and the character. Well, you can do that. All you have to do is go to options, you go to tools, options, and then you change the color with the slider. Then you have map grid. Map grid, if you click show, what it does is it creates a grid on the map. And then you can change how many tiles you want, horizontal and vertical, for every map to be starting at. But you don't have to. You can change that later. UI, so what you're looking at right now, that's the UI. Default is what this is. Then you have dark, which I like to use. High contrast white, and then high contrast black. My personal favorite is dark, so I'm going to keep it that way. Drop object selector. So object selector, pretty much what it does is, when you're in the editor, you can choose a lot of objects at one time, either based on the amount, if there's hundreds of them, or if there's a few of them. So right now there's only a few of them, so we're going to choose drop down. But later on, if you have a lot of stuff, you can change it later on. So those are our options. We're going to hit save because there were some saves, some things changed. Now, the character generator. Click character generator. You can also click right here. That'll take you to the character generator. And pretty much you get to see how you get to make your own character. So you have a whole A lot of options here. There's different parts for everything, but that doesn't mean it's on every single character. So right now, our character has front hair, rear hair, definitely an eye, eyebrow, mouth, nose, ear, clothing, but it doesn't have any cloaks or wings or beast ears or accessories and stuff like that. But if you want to add that, you can. You can also create female characters, kids. It's very useful if you're not really an artist and you want to use what the engine gave you when you first bought it. So click randomize. It's going to randomize a character. Some of them look cool. Some of them look really, really weird. Then if you click face image, it's going to allow you to import a whole face image file. So if you've already created some, you can import it from there. You can export it to a file, like save a file. Same thing with walking, damaged, and battler, which are the 4 parts of a character generator. You can save your settings as a .json file, and you can name it whatever you want. And you can pull it up by load settings, and you can get your settings back for that character. Now, each one has their own like little things. You click on an object in here. Variation just means that there's different stuff in here that you can use. Click on that, it'll add it for you. Of course, if you click on another thing, it'll take it away. Let's say there was an object with multiple colors. So you have the main color, change that, and then you click on subcolor, you can change that, subcolor 2, and you can have multicolored objects. You can also move that object around so that way you can better position what you want to see. So you can better position what you want to see. But yeah, that is the character generator. Now we have the resource manager. So the resource manager, also clickable by clicking here, is all your files, all your resources for your game. There's a whole lot of images and audio in your game, and a lot of times you want to manage it by importing it and then previewing it, just see what it looks like. So let's click on characters. Actor 1. Actor 1 is our characters, like our main characters, our party members, you, the hero. Import. Import allows you to go into your files and you can import by clicking on a file and clicking open, and it'll import it to that folder. It'll copy it over to your whatever folder you're in, and you can use it in that folder. Export, you can save it in another spot. Delete it, we'll delete it, obviously. DLC, basically, if you have DLC stuff from buying it MZ for certain stuff, then you can, like Steam, you can add your DLC stuff through there. For example, pictures, you can add these pictures onto there, not in characters, obviously you would do it in pictures, but that is something you could do. Now there's Event Searcher. Click on that. We're also, before we do that, I'm going to quickly create an event so you can show you this. Let's say there's like 100 events on this list, and I And just like, man, I don't know where this is. Even though it's on this list, I can't find it. Well, if you know the exact event name, so EV001, click search, it'll show you the exact position, event, and map that it's on, so you know exactly where to go. Now, switches and variables, we'll get to that later, but you can also search by that. Back to tools, and you can also click event searcher right there. Now you have sound test right here. You can also click it right here. This is where you can listen to your game's songs. These are your background music. BGS is your background sound, so you can have BGM playing at the same time as BGS, because maybe you want ominous music with some darkness sound playing. So, for instance, so we got a dungeon with some, and you can also change the pitch and pan it. You can stop it individually. That way you can hear how it works individually, or you can see how it works all together. Now, an ME is a effect. So, for instance, you sleep at an inn and you hear this. It completely stops the music and will play that instead. Sound effect. So, within your game, you will have different actions. For example, someone will attack. And you'll need sound effects to go with those. That's actions. Because then, if there's no sound effects, then there's no point, there's no fun. So you have a whole lot of options to choose from. Even before if you make your own stuff. They give you a lot to work with. For every option, they give you a lot to work with. So that's the sound test. And so at first glance, besides the database and plugin manager, oh yeah, so this is your drop down menu. Let's say you have multiple maps. You can move by left clicking on a map and dragging it. You can tier your map so that way you can organize it better. You click on a map, it'll change to that map. Delete, you can delete it. But let's go ahead and create a map by doing it this way. So let's right click over here. If you want to copy a map, you would click copy on that map, and then you would click Control V, and it would create a map the same exact one, the same exact way. Right click on your title of your game, you can click New Map, and it will give you the new map property list. Click Load, you can load a sample map, and they have a whole bunch of samples to choose from. Especially when you're first starting and you want to know what is exactly how a map should look and how you should make your map, I would definitely take a look at these samples maps so that way you can see how these maps work and how to make yourself a better tileset writer or maker, and how to make yourself a better map maker. You can also edit your own maps. You right click and you hit space or edit, bring up the properties if you want to change it. There's also, you can paste and delete from here if you want, but usually you can just use the keyboard. So find, which we saw earlier was find. Basically, you can find your maps by typing in stuff. You type in the name, display name or note, and you're like, display name, note. We'll get to that. So if you had multiple maps, you can keep finding different ones. You can have it search for different stuff. But usually most people have all their maps easily findable. Like I organize my maps where I can find it easily instead of having to search through it. But if you have like thousands of maps, then it's probably really useful. And then you have shift. What does that mean? So you can move your map. You can move things on your map all at once. Generate dungeon. You can generate a dungeon, rooms or maze, and you can add stuff like margins and passages, and you can use the tile set. So there's nothing on there, but that's because this isn't a dungeon map. This is a overworld map. Yeah. So let me switch this to a dungeon tile set and generate dungeon, and you can click on like let's say let's do rooms, and click on the dungeon walls and the floor, click OK. Makes a whole dungeon for us, or dungeon room to be exact. We wanted a maze. That's what apparently that's what it thinks a maze looks like. But you can also click save as image. Save an image, it will save it to your map images folder within your documents folder, or you can change it whatever you want. But basically you can get an image of your map without the events on there, and you can use it for other things. For example, if you take a picture of your world map, you can shrink it down to the size of a tile, and you can use it as like a painting or a map in your game. Pretty cool. So let's create a map. Click new. Now we're at the map properties. Window. So the first thing you see is your map ID. That's where that's going to be. So if you're having to ever look for that map ID, it's right there. Map 002. Then you have your general settings. You'll have your name, which the name is what pops up in your list. So there we go. In the game, if I wanted the name of my map to show up, I would put display name. But of course, if you want to, you can name it differently. Be like, and that's how I want to show it in the editor, so that way it's shortened for me. And display name, that's how you want to show it to the player. Tile set. So there's multiple tile sets. So what I was using on the left was a tile set where you can pick what tiles you want to use, like for your map, to color it and make it cool looking. There's different ones, like if you want a overworld, so like when you're moving across from town to town or to the next dungeon, overworld. Outside, inside, dungeon. SF is like modern stuff. Of course, later on we'll get to making your own tile sets and how to import that and change tile sets and all that. For now, we're going to go with outside. Width and height. So the bigger your map, the harder it's going to run for the game. So for instance, I would try to keep your maps 100 by 100 or less. This is pretty small, 13 by 17. That's a map that the camera of the game will see and will never move. If you make it a little lower, so like height of 16 or 17, then the game will start moving whenever you go down and up. Scroll type. Let's say I want my game to, or my map to loop around. Like if it was a continuous ocean and I didn't want to stop on each side, that I wanted to just keep going. Well, you can loop. Both means if you go up, it's going to loop. If you go left or right, it's going to loop. Vertical, up or down, it's going to loop. Horizontal, left or right. Encounter steps. So that's for every 30 steps, you'll encounter an enemy. Most people keep it low, but that's a problem because then you're going to have a billion enemies popping up all the time. In my opinion, you want to keep it a little higher because then you won't have your players be as annoyed being stopped all the time about these enemies. Then we have autoplay BGM. Let's click that checkbox, and whenever you first get onto this map, you will automatically hear this music. So it's like a little castle music that you hear when you first enter this map. Autoplay BGS, if you want it to automatically play like a city sound or dripping of while you're in a cave, or the sound of nighttime when you're outside. Usually I like to keep it low volume so that way it's not like overpowering the music. Specify battle back. So your battle backs, this is the background for your like battles. That's why it's called battle bag. The first image is your floor. What did I do? Oh, I went out. Yeah, the first image will be your floor. And you can also move the arrow keys to look through without clicking on every little thing individually. So let's go with this one. And then this side, this is your wall. Let's go with this one. Click that. Disable dashing. You can make them not be able to, your player not be able to dash on the map. You can just make them walk. Sometimes that would be very useful. Parallax background. So sometimes in the background there's in the editor there's nothing there. Well, sometimes you want to see things in the background that aren't actually on the map. For instance, mountains. You can have a loop. You can have it scroll. So like if you have clouds, you can have it move along very slowly in the background. And you can click show in the area if you want to see it in the editor while you're doing it. Note. The note box we'll get to later. For now, just think of it as a place where you can leave notes for yourself. Later on, we're going to get to note tags, and that's where things are going to get a little more advanced, but for now, just think of it as a place to leave notes. And then finally, you have your encounters. You have different troops, which a troop is a enemy encounter. So like a group of 2 goblins, a group of 2 gnomes, your enemies. So let's click on goblin times 2. Troop number 1. Their weight. So their weight is the frequency at which they're encountered. Okay, so the lower their weight, the higher it is that they're going to be encountered. They're going to have a high encounter rate. Range is if you wanted to have it where you encounter them everywhere on the map, or you can specify by region. So you can have it at region 1, region 2, region 3. We'll get to regions later when we get to tile sets, but just know you can do it that way too. Click on that, click OK, and we have our map. We're going to go ahead and we're going to try not to cover. Oh, so map grid. Just to talk about what we were talking about earlier with your options. So map grid. You see how I put 17 by 13 on here? And there's like a little black box here. Well, that's because it's trying to show you that this is where the camera is going to cut off before it starts moving. That whatever you put here, that's where the line's going to show. So if I want to put like if I want to know where my message box is going to be when people are starting to talk and through dialogue, it would show up right here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and no, not that one. We're going to create some grass. And I'm trying to make this kind of... We're going to put some trees right here. Actually, no. We're going to put cliffs. I feel like this will look cooler with cliffs. And these are auto tiles, so... And you can see that I'm very used to older RPG makers because I'm not really... I don't really know much about the layer stuff, but I'm getting used to it for the first time. But I'm going to click layer 2 and start putting down my trees. Very simple map, but the more you work on it, the better it will get. Same thing up here, you want to put your bushes and stuff. And honestly, I probably should have put the trees on the third layer, but guess what? That's okay. And now I'm going to show you some map making tips. Pretty much, if you left click and drag, you will get those tiles if you're on the right tiles set. So if I move over there, you can now place it all together like that, instead of having to individually just erase it and put it back down. So that can get annoying. Layer 3, meant to do it like that. Layer 1, now I can go here and click that. So now, layer 1, they are not there anymore. They're on layer 2. Oh, one thing to note is that if you click right here, you can go through and erase layered objects that way too. If you're, let's say you're on layer 1, but you don't want to erase the bottom layer under that, you can also just do it that way. But let's go back and put some grass onto layer 2, not 1, because 1 is our tile set, like the grass and stuff. Then go to layer 3 and you can see that stuff is now, the trees are now on top of the grass. Back to automatic and you can see what everything looks like. Go ahead and we're going to go ahead and erase with the first mouse so that I can change this. When you right click on a spot, that's where you can create new events and stuff, but if you ever, let's say, delete your character spot, or go to set starting position and hit player. Because remember how I put it that I wanted the map to scroll? Well, let's not do that. But let's loop it horizontally but not vertically so that we can't, so it doesn't do that. Alright, so the first thing you'll see whenever you open up your game, you'll see the title screen, and you have 3 options here. New game, starts new game. Continue, continues your saves. Option menu, you can change all this. You got your audio. Touch UI is for these buttons right here. Command remember is for battling. We'll get to that later. Always dash, you want your characters to always dash or always not dash. Click new game. Now we're just in the wilderness. And you do see it's a little disjointed, but that's because on our real map the cliffs are disconnected from each other, but that's okay. Let's walk around for a little bit. And then let's hit 50 steps and see what happens. Eventually. There we go. Now we're in battle, and that's how encounter rates work. Alright, so that'll be all for the first episode, where we introduce all the main stuff on the front screen of RPG Maker MZ. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time.